thank you everyone for coming. For those who I don't know, haven't met, I'm Yvonne, I'm Courtney's brother. You can see my sister and my mom over here, so they'll be coming up and speaking as well. First off, on behalf of the three of us, my entire family, greater family, we just want to say thank you all for coming. I know this has been a long time coming, and we're really, and obviously a sad reason we're here, but we're really happy to be here with everyone to finally have this celebration memorial. And we really appreciate you all taking time, whether you flew in or whether you're coming locally, we very much appreciate it. And look forward to hearing, it's great to just see how many people Courtney touched in his short time here on Earth or even here in the Bay Area. And so first off, we're gonna just have a few speeches by my mom's sister and then some people Courtney knew, and we're very close to him from his time here in the Bay Area in school. And then we will have a little, if anyone would like to say any words after that, we would welcome it. And then some few other reminders. Please don't forget to get a shirt if you would like one. There is memory cards and one of the side tables there. We'd love to see if you could write one down of a special memory from Courtney. Yeah, and then if you need anything, please find someone who's probably already wearing the Courtney shirt. Anything else? Oh, and tomorrow there will be a coffee and bagel and brunch social at Dolores Park. Oh yeah, at one of the picnic tables at 10 o'clock. So, and please feel free to find one of us if you need more details there. Oh, there's a sign-up sheet apparently outside, sorry. I wasn't given a brief. Okay, Mom, you wanna start?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, as Yvonne said, for coming to the event. I know many of you in the past hour has been telling me how, thanking me for having the event for you guys. But really, this event is also for me, in many ways, for my family, because, I don't know, I looked at the list of the RSVPs, and so many people that were on that list were not people that I had an opportunity to meet, but had influence, had an impact on Courtney's life. So I've been under so much control for the past month or so. But I can't tell you how comforting it is to have all the outpouring for him ever since it happened. I mean, May 1st in 2020 was the most nightmare call you can ever get as a parent from San Francisco Memorial Hospital. It was the most devastating and heartbreaking event for me as a parent to hear what has happened to your child. And it still, on days, feels like it's a nightmare that I'm living and that I will wake up one day and he'll be here. And I know realistically that's not going to happen, but it sure feels that way. And as many of you know, we had a similar event in Southern California, and my plan was to have one in Northern California actually last year too. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. It was supposed to happen at Twitter, which is where this memorial is, on their courtyard, on their fourth floor of their courtyard, which was put together, commissioned by Twitter, by a woman named Marion Conrad, who is very well known from Sacramento as a muralist. And so this mural is up in their courtyard. And unfortunately, Elon Musk messed up my plans. It was hard to have, it was just not feasible there to have it. But luckily in January, Jocelyn and Yvonne and I were able to go there and visit the mural and everything, because I had personally, just given his erratic behaviors, I was worried that one day he would come down there now that he, privately owns Twitter, and would come and decide to paint over that mural and say, this doesn't represent my values, so, paint over it. So anyways, thank you so much for coming. I'm really, really touched with everyone coming. I know most of you know Courtney through more of it as a young adult, especially those that are in the Bay Area, through either Cal, Twitter, Gay for Transit, Youth in Government, Coding Forward. I could go on and on and on. I probably would never hit all of the different ways that everybody has met Courtney. But, and I am very happy to meet all of you because it makes, for me, this is what counts. At the end of the day, it's the memories that will be left, because there's no more new memories to be made. It's just the memories that have up to this point. So I thought, since many of you know him as an adult, I would share some stories about Courtney of when he was a little kid, so you get a sense of what he was like. And also, as you know, as a mother to him, Courtney was hard as as smart as he was, Courtney always felt that he knew he could make all the decisions in life, even when he was younger. So, but I'll share some stories with you in that sense. One of the biggest things with Courtney was, and many of you know how much he loves trains. When he used to love, we were going to celebrate his 5th birthday, and he loved Thomas the Tank Engine trains. And so there was a train shop really close to our house in Indianapolis, and I saw the shop had the largest selection of Thomas Tank Engine I'd ever seen. So I thought I'll just take him there, let him pick what he wants. Well, that was the biggest mistake I made, because he didn't want to see the trains, the Thomas Tank Engine. The shop also had all these electric trains. And they had a setup of they had a whole setup of electric trains that you could play with. So Courtney's like, Mom, I want electric trains. I'm like, Courtney, you're 5 years old. I am not comfortable giving you electric trains. So his birthday's in August. So from August to December, every Friday, he had our au pair, Christiane, who's here, take him to the train shop, and he played with the trains. And then Christmas came around, and he put his list together. And the top 3 items were electric train, electric train, electric train. And so I'm like, Courtney, we talked about this. This guy goes, Mom, the guys at the train store told me that these trains are acceptable for someone my age. And I'm like, well, what am I going to say to that? So even at a young age, he was very persuasive in what he wanted. Then we were this is also in Indianapolis, about a year or 2 later, he had heard on the radio that John Roberts Powers was a drama school, was asking for auditions, people wanting to audition for drama and being an actor. And Courtney insisted he needed to go there and audition. So I took him there, and they make a video of you for the kids just to see, kind of get an idea if you have that capabilities or what. And then they call you back. And so the next day we went back, and the manager was sitting there, and the manager looks at me and he goes, well, we reviewed the video. And he goes, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how best to describe your son. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he goes, well, Courtney is a man in a little boy's body. So this is at the age of 6 or 7 years old. So that's kind of what he was all the time. Even in elementary school, like in 6th, 7th, 7th grade, they had these special programs, accelerated classes and stuff. And I found out later on that, they were offered that, but Courtney decided that wasn't for him, and he just made the decision without talking to me about it. As Mom, sometimes, I always tell Courtney, I know you're smart, but you don't have the experience. So sometimes your mom does, you need to talk to your mom about it. We make these decisions together, not by yourself. But he was very, like I said, persuasive, to the point where when he was 16 years old, he convinced Elizabeth Warren's office to hire him as an intern for the summer in Boston, when their office only hires college students as interns and only Massachusetts residents, not a high school student from California. But he got it. He pushed it, and he got it by himself, and he made it happen. So here I'm like, what am I going to say? I mean, I don't know it. We're living in California. I have a job, full-time job. I can't, and obviously it was before COVID, so remote working was not really that much common. And so even though Courtney was 16, luckily it was in Boston because they have a lot of students that come there for a couple months here and there. So I found Courtney a housing living situation where he could stay with this woman that was working for TSA, and she had several rooms, and she rented rooms out to students. So he stayed there by himself for the summer. And I'm sure, I used to tease him and say, Courtney, I'm sure everybody, when they ask you, where you're living, and that you're 16 and you're living in Boston by yourself, they must just say to themselves, your mother must have lost her mind to have let a 16-year-old live by himself in Boston. But, he's, like I said, he was a man in a little man's body. For him, the whole thing was going and being politically involved with Elizabeth Warren's office. That's what he was looking for. He wasn't going to go out drinking or anything like that. I don't have to worry about any of that. Of course, he did do that later with his siblings, which they hid from me. So anyways, some of the things, this is all the little things of him, but one of the jokes we always have, and we talked about this just yesterday too, and the family, we were talking about things. What are the things we remember that loved about him, and what are the things we remember that he irritated the hell out of us? But one of the things, like with Courtney, because he was so confident, no matter what the topic, whether he knew the topic or anything about it, he would talk like he was the expert in that topic. And he was, we would always say that Courtney would still, and we still do it, just like Courtney was really good at making shit up. And, I'm like, Courtney, you need to be careful. Someone's going to call you out one of these days when they're going to know a little more than you know on the topic, So, and I would always remind Courtney, because of his confidence, there's a really fine line between being confident and cocky. And I don't want you to tip over to the cocky side of it. That's not what I would want to raise my son by. So try to balance him out on a lot of those things. Because he was confident, and people, even today we talk about how people always say, well, he was so, and we just had this conversation, he's so extroverted. And actually he was extroverted when he was with people, right? He was always with people. And when he was with people, he was truly there. And if he was with one person or two people, he was always connecting with those people, right? That he was giving him fully himself. But Courtney also really needed time at home or his apartment or his dorm. He got his energy from being home, and so that he could go out there and be extroverted. And in fact, I would tease my son Yvonne and him because Yvonne had, like when high school, he would have people would be at our house every Friday. 3 o'clock, I would get a call from Yvonne, Mom, can they come over, right? So Yvonne had friends all the time over the house. But Courtney didn't. And I realized, I would ask him, he goes, no, I don't really want to see anyone here. He really wanted his home to be his home, and then when he's out there, he's out with people. So I always would tease, like, Yvonne had friends, and Courtney had a Rolodex of acquaintances and networking people that he had. And he cared for all of them, but it was more about the timing of which he had that with the interactions. I guess a couple other things is that I know, lots has been stated about Courtney's accomplishment for someone so young for his age. And obviously, as any parent, you're always proud of your children's accomplishments, and it's great. But for me, I think what was really the key was, of all everyone, no matter who it was that you talked to, whether they knew Courtney, just met Courtney, or had known him for a long time, from friends, family, the community, that everybody knew that Courtney was fierce with his empathy, and that, even when he started his job at Twitter, which was his first job, and he was sharing an apartment with his roommate, and then he started donating $50 a month to 10 charities. I mean, at the age of 21, that's what he was doing. And he was making good money, but still, he was 21 years old. But he started, and he did a lot of research to figure out which ones they were. And then when the pandemic hit, he had tweeted out there that I spent a lot of money on a Lego Taj Mahal last night for my own mental health. Actually, Mom really spent the money, but give him that. It was on my credit card. And he goes, now I want to help other folks who might be struggling due to COVID-19. If you know anyone who needs help, an organization that is helping, or a donation you want me to match, reply with info, and I will donate up to $400. So really action-oriented in terms of doing that. He really realized, Courtney would tell me a fair amount of times that he knew and acknowledged that, we talk a lot about white privilege and these days, and he would tell me, Mom, I know you've always been there for me, and you'll always be there for me. I know I'm privileged. I have gotten, no matter what I need, you will want or need, I will get it. Because others aren't as privileged as I am. They don't have the support emotionally, financially, for whatever reasons, from their family situations. And so he always wanted to be sure that, he would do things to provide those opportunities for students or children, whoever didn't have those opportunities. In fact, he was on the Thousand Oaks Student Commission, and one summer he organized internships for all high school students at various companies, so that they would have an opportunity to see what it was like to work. Because high school students, there are not a lot of opportunities in the summer for high school students. And so he reached out, put together a plan, and went to a lot of places to get them to all come and, had a workshop and got people internships for the summer. So always try to do something for people that don't have the opportunities that he had. So anyways, these are just some stories about Courtney as he was growing up. So I'm really grateful that we all have time, finally have the time to celebrate here and honor his life. Being a remarkable son of mine who not only had a zest for life, but shared it with everybody he knew. So from us, at the end last year, 2020, so it's really, like I said earlier, whether you knew him for a short time or a long time, people saw how special of a person he was and how positively impacted so many people's lives. And he had an uncanny ability to find love in every corner, in every person, and who knew no bounds on things. He was always connecting with people, making them feel at home. And for all the good that he's done, he will be continued to be honored for many days and years to come. And I also look at all of you that know him, and how much you have been inspired by him and how much you guys are doing things. So this whole thing with his legacy will, really live on, and he he's done more, in his short little life than most of us, and I feel myself, have done in a lifetime, and it was 21, and you really, how much can you do when you're up to, 10 years old even, right? So 10 years or so, he was able to do that. So thank you all for coming. It's really helpful to share the grief and doing it in person and comfort.
All right, thank you, Mom. I think I should let it know and add a little value to the story of the donations. It was only after everything happened that we found out that Courtney, while being an adult, was not an adult enough to have his own credit card. So he was donating that money, but on my mom's card. Yeah. So I don't know if it was his philanthropy as much as hers. And Courtney was the recipient, again, to go off one of my mom's stories, Courtney was straight edge in high school, but towards the end, he had the luck of being the youngest sibling and of us and Jocelyn not wanting to drag him along to bars. So there was one time that we had a little too much fun in Chicago when Courtney was like 16 or something. 17, and I think he will never forget how hungover he was at her bat mitzvah. Oh yeah, he threw up on my shoes, and we had to make up a story of how my mom about as I was cleaning my shoes in the morning, and I had to make up a story of how some drunk person puked on my shoes, and we had to lie about what time we got home. Okay, well, on the story of being good siblings, I'm going to let Jocelyn tell her stories.
Hi, everybody. Now you're just going to think that there were alcoholics and bad influences on Courtney. So thanks for that. I'm so happy each one of you are here. I love writing letters to my brother ever since he passed, so I figured I would share one with you all today. And thank you so much for being such a special part of Courtney's life. I know we haven't met, some of us haven't met yet, but I'm really excited to meet each and every one of you and share memories of Courtney. And I want to hear all your stories, bonus points if they're embarrassing. So my dearest little brother, I don't even know where to begin. Most of the time, I'm at a loss for words. I'm so lucky to call you my brother. There are so many times growing up that we had so much fun, and it was a privilege being your older sister. You always used to love everything that I cooked for you. I was the only one who could make you boxed Kraft mac and cheese. My secret was putting half a stick of butter in there, but don't tell. We used to love baking together. We had our Christmas tradition of making peanut butter blossoms and watching Elf and literally quoting the entire movie. My friends would always come over to our house after school to hang out with you and Yvonne. I guess I just wasn't cool enough. We always loved watching Modern Family and making Phil Dunphy jokes. What's my favorite color? Yellow. It really never gets old. I loved spending time with you after I graduated from college and lived at home. We were 8 years apart, so we didn't have a lot of time at home together when we were kids. I'll never forget when I came to live at home after Peace Corps and you were in your senior year of high school and I still had to wake you up in the morning to make sure that you made it to school on time. Courtney, 17 years old and couldn't even wake up to his own alarm, but he was one of the valedictorians at his high school. Like that all, yeah, it makes sense. Cool. Then you went to college at Berkeley, but you would spend a good amount of time in LA and come stay with me. We had adventures riding roller coasters at California Adventure, singing along at a reasonable volume to the live Frozen show at Disneyland. You even made Emily and I go to Knott's Berry Farm and eat all things boysenberry, even though we really didn't want to go. We had so much fun in Palm Springs for Emily's birthday, singing Lizzo songs by the pool. And I'm so glad I came up to Berkeley to celebrate your 21st birthday. That was one of the best trips we ever had together, biking around the city, eating cupcakes, and seeing you take your first legal shot at the local dive bar in Berkeley. And you bet he requested a blowjob shot. Like, what a guy, what a guy. In October 2019, my best friend Emily and I took a road trip starting in LA along the Pacific Coast Highway, and we stopped in San Francisco to have brunch with you at one of your favorite restaurants, and then you took us to Dolores Park to hang out before we had to hit the road to Sacramento. I'm so glad that we have such a good memory of you in that park. You had just recently moved into your apartment, and it was a beautiful day in the city, and you were so happy. Courtney, you are more than just loved, you are adored, not by just our family, but by so many people in so many places around the world. The world was so much better and brighter with you in it. If I have the quarter of the impact on the world as you did in your short lifetime, I would be happy. I am so proud of you, and I miss you more than you'll ever know. Rest in power, little brother. Thanks.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Okay, so our first kind of guest speaker, if you will. You may know her and Courtney. We're both big advocates of public transit, but I think I'm going to steal my uncle's joke from earlier this weekend, where I talk about Courtney's motivations for public transit. And for those who may or may not know, when Courtney was, 17-ish? He was driving in Thousand Oaks during high school, hydroplaned and hit a wall, totaling the car that my mom had gotten for all three kids to hopefully make it through us in high school. So he was the reason for the end of that car. And obviously getting in an accident, a very traumatic experience. And so we just think that Courtney was no longer able to drive after that and was really a public transit advocate because he didn't like driving. And he didn't want to do it. And so he was advocating for it so he would never have to. But with that, obviously, everyone knows here, you can see on the thing, Courtney was a huge public transit advocate while at Berkeley and during his short time here in SF. And with that, I'll let someone who shared that interest, Janice, talk a little bit more about their relationship.
I'm going to try to keep it together here. So thank you, everyone, for being here and for celebrating one of the most beautiful and incredible humans I was lucky to know. I think many of you know, I've been honored to serve on the BART board since 2018, which was around the time I got to know Rigel Robinson. Soon, Rigel told me about a friend of his from UC Berkeley who was in love with BART and showed me a photo of this friend finally riding one of the new BART trains. And I think many of us know this photo. It's Courtney with the biggest smile on his face riding one of the new BART trains. I think there's a series of photos of him like marveling at all the new aspects of the new trains. I would also like to think that Courtney would be thrilled to know BART is now running just over 50% new Fleet of the Future trains today, while back in 2018, it really felt like a special experience when you got on one. Through Rigel, Courtney and I became friends, Twitter friends. But then one day, we joked about creating a meetup of LGBTQ+ folks who love transit, because back then, in those pre-Elon days of being on Twitter in San Francisco, as niche as it sounds, it really felt like there was a whole lot of us who really, queers who just really love riding buses, trains, and ferries. And that's how we formed Gay for Transit. I mean, I'm sure you can look up that tweet where we were just joking around and saying, like, what if we just did this? But of course, Courtney, he went and actually did these things. So we founded Gay for Transit, a San Francisco meetup for all kinds of queers who love all kinds of transit. I hadn't even met Courtney in person yet, but after we set our first date, time and place, and I will say, I think Courtney was still, in many ways, navigating his queer identity, trying to make sense of where he sort of fit, and this was very new to him, and especially moving to San Francisco. I remember he was like, I don't know what the gay bars are. Like, how do I find them and where can we hold this? But we finally found a spot. The first one was at High Tops. And so, when we set the date, time, and place, we finally caught up in person at the Twitter office and thus began our friendship. So starting in 2019 and spanning into the start of the pandemic, Courtney and I began hosting monthly Gay for Transit meetups, which quickly became one of my favorite spaces to be. And it was really all because of Courtney's energy and care. Those meetings were so positive and so joyful and so much fun. There was something that felt so impromptu and silly about it all, like we never took ourselves too seriously. But it was just a beautiful community. How many people here have been to a Gay for Transit meetup? And I know that a lot of us have remained friends through some of these really difficult times. But what I really loved was that Courtney was so thoughtful about making sure the venues we chose would be accessible to people with disabilities. When we had people under 21 who wanted to attend but couldn't get into a bar, he and I, although it might have been your money, raised a little bit of money, and then we were able to rent a room right here at the SF LGBT Center to host. Thank you so much for your generosity. Now that I know. And the vision was really simple. We just wanted to build a community together and meet folks. So I will say that the last 3 years without Courtney have been a lot. I have seen San Francisco politics continue to get more toxic. I have seen transit advocacy get more desperate and negative. And I have to say, without Courtney in this world, I feel like the light has dimmed for me just a little bit. And when times get hard, I often think about Courtney. What would he do? What would the energy he would bring look like? How would he make justice an action and not just words? And how would he fight for what's right and to fight with joy? And I have to laugh a little bit about this image right here because I remember I gave her transit meetup. So that's Courtney on a bike share bike. You can just tell by the silhouette. And I remember we had a Gay for Transit meetup. It was at Dolores Park, actually. And it was right when it was then Ford Go Bike had announced that they were going to change the pricing policy. And we did an entire photo shoot of him kicking this bike share bike because he was so angry. He was like, it's not right. Bike share should be affordable and accessible to everyone. But that's the kind of person Courtney was. But when I'm having these tough moments, I ask myself, what would Courtney do? It's almost funny in a way because I know Courtney really looked up to me. I know he was so excited when we connected. I just heard from his former roommate that he would tell everyone when he met me, he would be like, Janice Lee followed me on Twitter. And that I don't even know how to feel about that. And he'd let others know how he met me. And sometimes I will think, in the darkest hours, I really feel like I failed him. And that San Francisco failed him. I know it's not rational, I know. And in those moments, when I get angry, when I think how unfair it is that Courtney cannot be here with us, I realize how much grief I carry. I know that many of you carry that grief too. And I just want to say, it's okay. I'm glad I have you all, the community of us who love Courtney. So, Courtney, thank you for making our world just a bit brighter while you were in it. Thank you for bringing so many of us together to celebrate you and for believing there is a better world we can make and build together. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Janice. I think also too, we're looking at this memorial at Twitter. We always talk about Courtney's love of Twitter. I think also too, it shows, we talk about Courtney's convictions, Courtney's desire to make a difference, wanting to be passionate about everything he did. And I think it's actually, should be known that Courtney actually chose Twitter, reneged on a job to go to Twitter. he was all set to go after school and join Microsoft after his summer internship. And I remember, what was it, Thanksgiving of 2018 or something, he'd signed his Microsoft offer. We were in LA, we were like on our way to, I think, Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. And he had gotten this Twitter offer and was really debating it. It was actually, and again, Courtney being a man of conviction and passion, the Microsoft was a better job title, better money. But we all know that, as we just talked about, everyone's here, Courtney's most used app on his phone was Twitter. And so even though he was contemplating it, I think everyone in our family was like, what the hell are you doing? Just take the job at Twitter and go work at a place that you're passionate about. And obviously he did. And the reason I also say that too is I have a few words from his former manager at Twitter, who unfortunately was not able to make it today. And so I'm just gonna read those, are the stories that he wanted to talk about. So apparently when Courtney first introduced himself to Tom, he used his pronouns, which Tom had never had done in tech. Tom had been in tech, I think, like 10, 15 years. And so I think Courtney doing that was really significant for Tom and just for the community and something that had not been done before. I don't know if everyone here has visited. Courtney had a little resume, a little website. And he had a section where it says, where I failed or when I failed. And so it just talks again about the learning opportunity, how he saw everything, I guess, as a learning opportunity and wanted to profess that failing's okay. And then perhaps the most famous story that we've heard from Tom is they were on a work trip to New York. Courtney really wanted a bagel, and he made Tom take the train for 45 minutes, right? Because God forbid he gets in a car. They take the train 45 minutes to get a bagel at I'm assuming a famous place Courtney found out about. They wait in a line for a while. They get to the front. Courtney says, can I get a bagel toasted? They say, we don't toast bagels. And Tom says, Courtney just straight up walked out. Man of his convictions, I guess. And the last story is how when they were in Houston, again, for a work trip, Courtney, they were, I guess, walking by some homeless people on the street, and Courtney just basically turned out his pockets and gave whatever he could to the people. And so Tom just wanted to share those few stories and just talk about how he tries to exemplify Courtney these days. And also, I think it should be known too that Courtney was pretty obsessed with Tom and dressed up as Tom for Halloween for work. I think there's a picture here somewhere. Yeah. So just wanted to share those words. Our next speaker, I also just want to give a really big shout out to. She has been extremely helpful she was the reason that there is a bench for Courtney in Dolores Park. And she is helping us to make sure that there is another memorial, potentially around the city, a parklet, or just a gathering space for people. So without further ado, Sarah, do you want to come up and say a few words?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. It's really amazing to see all of us gathered here today to remember and celebrate Courtney. Thank you to Courtney's family for creating this space today. Grief is one of the most challenging feelings we face as humans, and the opportunity to be in community helps lessen that sting. So thank you to Rekha, Vaughn, Jocelyn, and all of Courtney's family for holding the space for us today. I was first in Courtney's orbit exactly a year before he was killed. Exactly. On May 1st, 2019, we both attended a protest in downtown San Francisco to advocate for better pedestrian safety along Market Street. It wouldn't be until a little bit later that year that I officially met Courtney in person. But of course, back in the heyday of Twitter, he would pop up on my feed very often. So needless to say, I very quickly learned more about who he was. When Courtney and Janice worked together to create Gay for Transit, I was intrigued, but truth be told, I had never gone to an explicitly queer social event, and I was nervous. Would I be accepted? Was this space for me? Would I even make friends? Seeing Courtney's bold and proud online persona really gave me the courage to show up for the San Francisco queers who love transit social scene. And I do love a niche topic, and this was really at the center of that Venn diagram. Courtney saw me and accepted me for exactly who I am, and in doing so really helped me feel like San Francisco was home. It was in this very building at a Gay for Transit meetup that I learned the F line, the historic trolleys that you've been hearing all day outside, are Courtney's favorite muni line. Through Gay for Transit meetups, I became close with Courtney and my friends Kat and Chris, who are here today. We started hanging out outside of Gay for Transit, going out for dinner, building Legos, complaining about politics, eating ice cream, like truly the stuff of sitcoms. Of course, our world came screeching to a halt when the pandemic happened. I don't want to spend too much time in early 2020, but I'd be remiss if I did not mention it was Courtney's idea to start a weekly Zoom night, a game night together to keep some semblance of social structure. May 1st, 2020 was only the second game night, and it was an excruciating night. In the wake of that night, the friends I made because of Courtney were and are the support system that has held each other through extraordinarily difficult times. Grief can often feel insurmountable, and there are many times over these past years it has for me. Earlier this year, I had the privilege to take part in a young adult grief retreat. I talked a lot about Courtney and how my grief journey, much like his life, feels incomplete. One exercise we did was to write a letter to our loved ones who passed, and I'd like to read the letter that I wrote to Courtney. Dear Courtney, the night of your death still is as fresh in my mind as the moment it happened, but I don't want to spend time writing you about one of the worst days of our lives. I want to thank you. Thank you for seeing me and seeing all of us. Creating community where there wasn't one. Gay for Transit was the first explicitly queer space I entered, and it was a magnificent one, bustling with joy and purpose, irreverence and earnestness. It is because of this space I currently walk through life with a better understanding of who I am, a group of friends who visits ribbon cuttings for transit projects, and a bone-deep desire to make this world a better place. In your loss, you gave me the superpower to notice and listen to my feelings more presently, to notice and speak up when someone is not at the table, when something isn't right, to jump into community. Your last written words to this world are held in my heart as a reminder to take a break, to notice, to feel thankful. This grief journey has been hard, but when I think about how you lived and how you made me feel for a brief moment, everything felt okay.
Thank you, Sarah. So we mentioned, obviously, Courtney was the youngest of the three of us. We grew up in Indianapolis for a good bit of time. We all went to the same school there. Then Courtney followed me in high school. So he was always like the other Brousseau, the other boy. And then I think it's fair to say, we all know it, that it was a not so secret in our family that Courtney was going to be the most successful one of the three of us. He was the smartest. He was going to go places. You know, we all joke about the politician in Courtney. And we had really high hopes. We knew he was going to go places. College was going to be his opportunity to be his own person. And then he went to Cal. So he had to follow me again. But obviously he had probably a bigger impact, so we won't talk about that. But then he followed me too, and he did the same major. He did econ. So I just think it's funny that he just lived in the shadow, even though we all know he was going to be more successful. But anyways, the reason I'm talking about this is because the next speaker that we have was Courtney and I's economics professor at Berkeley. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Romer up to speak.
It's an honor to be here. As Yvonne said, I knew Courtney in a different way from, I think, anyone else here. I was one of his professors at Cal. I got to know Courtney quite well, and I think that's actually tells you a lot about Courtney, because it's not like I was his advisor or he worked for me as a research assistant or anything like that. He took 2 very, very large courses from me. That is not a recipe for getting to know someone very well. But every semester, there are a handful of students who first figure out that most people in the class are afraid of office hours at the start of the semester, and second, who actually think it would be fun to go. And Courtney was one of those students. So in my memory, which I'm sure is exaggerated, every Wednesday afternoon from 1 to 3, for 2 whole semesters of my teaching career, there was Courtney in my office talking about things. And it was great. I mean, sometimes it was, I'm stuck on a problem or struggling with a concept. This being Courtney, that was very rare. Sometimes it was someone else in the room was in the same position, and then what one does is one turns to the other students and say, can you help? And being Courtney, he was fantastic at that. But mainly he was just interested in things, interested in topics in the class that we barely touched on, issues in economics beyond what we did in class, issues of public policy, public transit came up, biking came up. He was also interested in me, which is really nice and flattering, and you don't see a lot in a 19-year-old. He never came across as a know-it-all or cocky. In fact, so he hid that side of himself very well. It's just, so I guess I'm going to put this in personal terms. I have taught at Cal for 35 years. I'm retiring at the end of this semester. I'm giving my last final exam on Monday to 450 eager first-year Cal students. So I enjoy teaching. I have found teaching undergraduates at Berkeley incredibly enjoyable and incredibly rewarding. And if you'd asked me 3 years ago, if you asked me now, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, what single student best exemplifies, epitomizes why you're proud to have devoted your career to teaching Cal undergraduates, I would have chosen Courtney in a flash. He was smart as hell, not in a know-it-all way, but in just a deeply insightful, grasping hard concepts, making connections, getting to the bottom of things. It wasn't just in my classes. He was a finalist for the University Medal, which is the highest honor that Cal gives to its graduating seniors. I wrote a letter supporting his candidacy for that, so I got to see the rest of his transcript, which is mind-boggling. He was outgoing, he was interesting, he had just fantastically wonderful values. He was just a joy to interact with all the time. And then the day I got the news of what had happened, I mean, it was just so utterly devastating, just so beyond comprehension. And it's been 3 years, and every time I think about it, every time it comes back up, it's just like getting kicked in the stomach all over again. The world lost so much. I mean, all we can do in our lives is, we all have limited times here. All we can do is try to make the world a better place for those around us and the broader community. And Courtney did so much of that. He did so much more than his share in that short time. But the world has lost so much, his family and loved one, his friends, his acquaintances, and then the broader world that he was having an impact on already. So it's sad beyond words to be having this event, but it's also so appropriate that we celebrate Courtney and what he did, and we remember everything that he accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Romer. All right, our next speaker, we've talked about a lot about Courtney, his advocacy. We talked about how Courtney was an old man in a young kid's body. Our next speaker knew Courtney through his government activism. He was part of this organization called Youth in Government. It was very Courtney to, like when he was 15, know more about things before he could even vote and try to advocate. And so without further ado, I'll let Kyle come up and speak more about that.
As I think that it's been brought up here a lot, Courtney was a grown man in a child's body from pretty early on. I feel like he was always very ahead of his time. When I first met Courtney, he was a youth and government delegate, and I was either like in my last year of law school or had recently just graduated. And for anyone, there's a lot of youth and government people here. It's really like the convention for adults trapped in children's bodies. It's government camp, and Courtney was the chief justice there, which means he was the quarterback on the government team. And the first time I saw him speak, I was just really impressed. As a high school student, he seemed like he was in college, and later on, when he was in college, he volunteered with me and my wife and Isha in the appellate court program. And we were all attorneys and law students, and people would come through and talk with the volunteers, and I would always have the advisors or board members and things like, oh, I really like that one young attorney on your team was so great. And I was like, yeah, he's like a sophomore in college. Really? Yeah. So I'm pretty confident by the time he graduated undergrad, he could have just done my job better than me. But he was a really talented guy, and he was good at a lot of different things. But ultimately, I don't think that was his gift. His gift was that his humility and generosity caused his excellence to make achievement seem accessible to other people. You didn't see him and go, oh, it must be nice. You kind of saw him like, oh, okay. Yeah, we can all do this. We can all just be a little bit, better. And I feel like he was always evolving and working towards something because he knew that there was a better version of himself on the horizon. And I think he made other people see that in himself. During one of our youth and government conferences, we had 200 kids in our program, and we have to assign them into roles of justices and appellant and respondent attorneys, and they choose their roles and kind of rank their choice, and inevitably you end up ruining some high school kid's senior year because they didn't get the role they wanted. And I had been doing this for probably 8-9 years, and I was writing down everyone's name on pieces of paper that I was gonna cut up and pull out of a hat. And Courtney was like, hey, I have an idea. I was like, oh, sure. He's like, just hold on real quick. And he pulled out his computer and he wrote some sort of sorting program on Excel that would take everyone's ranked choice voting. He's like, well, this ranked choice voting we have in Berkeley and the city elections, and it's really great. And I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Let's do that then. As I'm cutting a piece of paper and I'm like, I'm a moron. Felt like I was just Flintstoning my way as he drove past in a Ferrari. I'm like, oh, right. And I was really just odd, and I also was I feel very old very suddenly. Courtney was so composed, and I think that he made other people really feel comfortable. And one thing that he did sort of in our last year together in YNG that was just, we were really making each other laugh with it, was completely misusing common expressions. Our delegates, he and I were working with one delegate and explaining something, and he's like, oh, thank you guys so much for that. And he says, well, dream work makes the team work. And he said it with such confidence, the delegate was like, yeah, and I feel like that poor kid probably spent the rest of the night, he's like, is that the expression? But that was Courtney. He was very confident. And I think that, it's funny to hear that you're like, yeah, he also made shit up. But which is why he could have been such a good politician and lawyer, as I always say. So to honor Courtney, I just encourage all of us to remember that we can always be better and that there is a better version of ourselves and society on the horizon. Because just like with, instead of me spending an hour cutting up pieces of paper to disappoint people, you can write a program that incorporates ranked choice and makes it more seamless for everyone. Every problem has a better solution. So whenever you have your bear to cross, remember there's no I in team spirit. Make sure to watch like no one is dancing and be the change you wish to see in the vending machine. Live your life with humor, humility, and compassion, because when you do, there's always going to be some Courtney Brousseau in the world. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kyle. All right. I think it's appropriate that this next speaker, obviously Kyle spoke a lot about Courtney's involvement in government. This next speaker is our local celebrity politician. And he has been extremely helpful. I don't know if you guys know, but during his time at Berkeley, Courtney was very involved in the government, the ASUC government. And Rigel, who you're going to hear from, was so helpful, along with other of Courtney's Berkeley friends, in getting the Berkeley Senate chambers renamed. The Berkeley ASUC Senate chambers are now the Courtney Brousseau Senate chambers. And so I just, again, speaks to Courtney's love of activism, government, and we're really thankful for Rigel and the rest of Courtney's friends from Berkeley for making that happen, and that his plaque will be there for generations of students to come. And so without further ado, Rigel.
Hi. Courtney and I were roommates his senior year, and if he were here right now, he would whisper under his breath, and they were roommates. Like that vine, there's enough young people here to appreciate that. But I first met Courtney. It was just after the start of his first year on campus at Cal. He wanted to organize a protest about something, and people told him he should talk to Rigel, and that's it there on the bottom left. He'd been on campus for like 12 days, and he was like, what's going on? These people need to rise up. It was beautiful. It was beautiful, and we were pretty inseparable ever since. My name is Rigel, and the last time I had a spontaneous, unexpected, and incredibly inconvenient breakdown because I remembered that Courtney was gone was 10 days ago. And then again this morning. Yeah, I had thought I was handling all this pretty well by now, but it sneaks up on you in new and surprising ways. It's been a very long 3 years. And as so many have said today, it is surreal that this is the first time so many of us have had the opportunity to come together in person and celebrate his beautiful life. And so in this moment, I'm feeling especially grateful for the company and love of all of you, and the so many of you who, when we were sheltered in place, kept from one another, were mourning together, whether we could wrap our arms around one another or not. And I don't know how I would have gotten through without you. I've learned a lot about grief in the last 3 years, and I remember vividly the first time I showed up to something that I knew he would have been at if he were still with us. And I felt his absence then in a new way. And while his absence is felt every day, I've found solace in the ways that I still feel his presence. Some of you know I adopted this pair of boots from him after he passed. One time, on January 5th, 2021, I was outside a Safeway and a woman yelled at me. She said, and these were her exact words, she said, "Hey, where'd you get those boots?" And I said, "They were a gift from a friend," which was a lie. And she said, "They is sexy." You tell your friend that. And I laughed and said, thank you, I will, which was also a lie. And then I cried in Safeway because I couldn't tell Courtney that his stupid boots were sexy. I've worn right through them twice now, and twice taken them to a lovely cobbler in Berkeley. And I remember when I handed them over for the first time, the nice man across the counter, Peter, started undoing the knot in the shoelaces. And if I'd thought about it beforehand, I should have known that would happen, but suddenly I'm frozen here, standing before this nice cobbler as he undoes the knot so we can get to work on these sexy boots and see Courtney's boots. Courtney's sexy boots have a zipper on the side, and so you never have to tie or untie them, which when he was wearing them, I thought was incredibly goofy, and now that I'm wearing them, I find it incredibly convenient. But so see, because of the zipper, I had never untied the shoes. The knot was Courtney's. And somehow I felt like if the knot came undone, he would slip just a little further away from me. More and more just a memory. And as Peter starts to untie this knot, I feel an impulse rising in my throat. I almost yell at him, no, stop. That's Courtney's knot, don't touch it. But I don't, because that would be really embarrassing and really hard to explain. I've seen Peter many times since then and never told him any of this, and hopefully he didn't notice I was having a little moment there across the counter from him. But I remember the way he handled the shoes with his gigantic, gentle hands and smiled at me and told me that after he fixed them, I would love them so much and that I would walk 1,000 miles in them and that after I did, I should come back and get them recobbled and then I'd walk 1,000 more. He sounded just like Vanessa Carlton. But through these sexy boots, Courtney has walked with me to cities, on trails, on trains, on beaches, to see my family, to see his family, so many places and moments that he would have loved. He was walking with me in New York last winter with Taylor, my partner. I wish he got to meet you, Taylor. Maybe he would be living there by now, off on some new adventure. We'll never know. But now you've all heard the story about Courtney's perspectives on bagels, that he once waited in line at a noteworthy bagel place in New York and got to the front and didn't order anything because they wouldn't toast it for him. And when we were there, we got a different bagel every day. Untoasted, every time, like the New Yorkers insisted. And they were so good. You had bad opinions about bagels, Courtney. You were wrong about bagels, but at least through your sexy boots, you were there too. I've been talking about these boots a lot, but it's for a reason. He's gone. But there are so many things we can hold on to that remind us of who he was. His kindness, his passion, his brilliance, his laugh, his heart. We can hold on to memories, we can hold on to things, we can hold on to places, we can hold on to each other. And sometimes the things we hold on to don't have to make a whole lot of sense, and that's okay. All pineapples remind me of Courtney. All burritos remind me of Courtney. Cuffed jeans remind me of Courtney. $2 Chuck reminds me of Courtney. The Department of the Treasury reminds me of Courtney. One time I was driving to SFO to pick up my mom at the airport and I saw a Muni bus that said on the numbers thing where the route usually is, not in service, and for some reason that broke me and it reminded me of Courtney. It doesn't have to make sense, but if it gives you peace, hold on to it and never let go. All this is just to say I carry Courtney with me everywhere I go. I tell stories about my friend like he's still here. I still look up to him and want to be more like him and ask, what would Courtney do? 3 years on, I'm a different and stronger and softer person than the last version of me that Courtney knew. But Courtney is frozen in time. 3 years on, the Panic attacks are infrequent, which is good. And 3 years on, most importantly, I find that I'm more capable of talking about his memory with fondness, not just with pain. And that has perhaps been the most important journey of all. For months after we lost Courtney, it was hard to be in San Francisco. And I know that would have pissed him off so much. He loved this city. He believed in the city. He wanted it to be better. And I know it would break his heart to think that any of us would associate this place with loss and not the beautiful promise that he saw in it. And so it is so very good to be back and good to be here with all of you, and so good to feel his presence here with all of you. 3 years on, sometimes it still feels like he was here just yesterday. And for that, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Rigel. I do hope those boots go on for thousands of miles. Okay, so this is the moment where I want to open it up. Would anyone like to speak, say a memory of Courtney? We just want to make sure everyone has the opportunity.
I just moved to San Francisco back from Sacramento 6 months ago, and I got this shirt, which is actually a little boy's shirt, and I wore it in honor of Courtney because it has queerness and public transit. And I think he would have liked it, that it was originally supposed to be for a little boy, and here I am, an adult woman, wearing it and crying in front of all of you. My name's Elizabeth Wells, and Courtney and I became friends through the ASUC in a very unexpected and unconventional way, and I just wanted to share that with you, and I brought this as a memento, but just very briefly, Ode to an Unexpected Friendship. Courtney and I were unexpected friends forged by an ASUC fire. He wore long pants and flip-flops. I wouldn't leave my shorts and Vans. He was entering his sophomore year. I was starting my senior. He'd come to work for Twitter. I'd come to work for Planned Parenthood. Maybe it was the Cal Day photo booth, or the way we'd wrangle senators to do tabling, or spend Wednesday night talking about the 2016 election while live streaming the meetings. But actually, what it was that Courtney carried around joy as he flip-flopped around. He was jubilant and could see parts of yourself you didn't realize were there. He brought up a room at the same time he'd say they needed to abide by branding guidelines. But most importantly, what sparkled about Courtney was his kindness and his patience. Courtney and I, we would have communications meetings on Monday evenings, and right afterwards I would go teach a sexual health class. And I say patience because sometimes I would come to our meetings with a big box, and he would say, "What's in that box?" And I'd look and I'd say, "Dildos." Or other times I would run our ASUC Snapchat, and I had to tell him, "Courtney, I'm so sorry I messed up the Snapchat accounts, and there's a big purple dildo called Colossus on the ASUC feed." And I was so scared to text him. And he just laughed and said, "It's okay." He got me my first Planned Parenthood shirt, and I wore it till the white was starting to dingy stain, and I reached for it more than the shirts I got there. He texted me every time he was in Sacramento for youth and government to catch up and get coffee and tell me about queers who love trains. And knowing that I was proud of my contributions to the ASUC, he rounded up 20 senators to pitch in to purchase a stole for me to wear at graduation. I'm just called a tabling wizard. You know those friendships that stick with you, that itch a part of your brain, that you carry around in your pocket when you wear your favorite pair of jeans. You don't know necessarily what their favorite food was. You don't know what they wanted to be when they grew up. You don't know, but you do know. It was one of the first friendships you had that taught you about what kindness was. You know your soul's connected in a way that I still have trouble putting into words. And you know, and you continue to know, that you loved them. The world glimmers a little bit less. Bart's a little bit dirtier. We can't even talk about Twitter. But I think we all glimmer a little bit more from the friendship that we got to have through Courtney and Courtney's love. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing that, Elizabeth. Would anyone else like to say anything?
Hello. I'm kind of nervous. I didn't prepare anything, but I'm Erica, she, they. I'm a queer community organizer here in the city, and given that description, you might think that I know Courtney from this era of his life, but actually I met Courtney when I was 16 in youth and government. Back then, the last person was talking about, you didn't necessarily know what Courtney wanted to be when he grew up. I wanted to be Courtney when I grew up. That was my experience of Courtney as a teenager. He encouraged me and some of my friends over here to really push ourselves in the court program, in the national judicial competition. We went to Chicago together a few times. I had forgotten this, but apparently I wrote on his 2014 NJC yearbook thing, "You have a cute butt." So I'm really, I think, very grateful and lucky to have known Courtney through various eras back in those government days, and then also at Cal, where, again, when I first got in, I was ecstatic because, not only that it's a great school, but, this person that I looked up to so much was there already and had kind of walked me through every step of the process of transitioning to college. He would spend my meal points at lunch every week. I don't even know if Rigel remembers this, but he made me buy Rigel grapes at the GBC cafe once with my meal points. And he also encouraged me to take various classes that I thought would be challenging, including Dr. Romer's, spoke very highly of Econ 2, and he was like, wow, these professors actually fixed the recession, that's crazy. And encouraged me to take data science classes and things like that when I didn't think that I would be good at that. So he really believed in me and all of us. And I think, we had a friendship that kind of waxed and waned, as you do with people that you meet when you're younger. And now that I live in the city, I actually volunteer here every week, and I live very close to where Courtney lived, though I moved here 2 years after. I always imagined what our friendship would be like now. And, the new era of queer activism, and we never got to explore that part of ourselves together as much. And, that's really sad. I too like transit and all these things that he stood for. And it's just a bummer that that friendship that, waxed and waned throughout the years would never have that, wax again. And I do wonder, what he would be like as a 25-year-old and introducing myself to him now. And I know that he would be really proud of me. And I'll always be proud of him also, and so will everybody here. So thank you so much for creating the space. And can I just say the memorandum efforts by the family have been extraordinary over the years. So organized. The website, everything is beautiful, all the hashtags, only Courtney's family could have pulled this off. So thank you all so much. And don't tell anyone this, I'm trusting you all, but my computer password and my email password are both love for Courtney. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Any final words? All right. Well, with that, again, I want to express thank you for coming from my mom, Jocelyn, the rest of my family. Thank you for everyone who helped out to plan this. Thank you all for coming from far and away. Reminder to sign up for tomorrow if you would like to come. And yeah, just feel free to mingle. Please find us. If we would love to hear more stories about Courtney. If you didn't want to share on the stage, if you have pictures, we would love to have them too. We'll put them up on the Love for Courtney site. Yeah. So thank you all.